Y'all, I missed the memo that Screencast-O-Matic ends in 15 minutes. So I'm going to pick up where we left off. We were just talking about F-rate. I'll update this on a daily basis and share this with our staff on a weekly basis. I'll share it with y'all as well on a weekly basis. And then we'll also be looking at GPA across the board on a weekly basis across each grade level. These targets here are from try to 1920 school year, and we are trying to get within 0.1 of all of these targets. So you'll see, for instance, for grade 8, we're actually below our target of 3.0, but we're within that 0.1 range, so we're still fine. We're doing okay. Okay, so I'll update this on a weekly basis. And then down here, this is data I've already showed you, but this is our family survey data that I'll send out monthly. There's those 3 questions about workload manageability, the accessibility of information systems like Flyer, IC, Google Classroom, and then the accessibility of our team. That is just about it for in terms of our 6-week push. There's some PSAT, SAT data down here that Allie's working on. But from this dashboard, that is what you will see on a relatively consistent basis. There is also, and this is going to be rolled out on Monday the 14th, so today when you're watching this, you'll see that in the staff survey, there are some of the normal questions that we would always have seen in our survey, but now there are some 6-week instructional push specific questions. So one here about the rollout. This one's really just for my own development. That question is largely just for me. But then there are these questions. I felt supported in implementing the 6-week instructional push towards means of participation. At this point, the teacher has seen increased levels of student participation. Question here about the peer observation bank, and that's it. So there's these 3 main questions here for teachers to answer in regards to our 6-week push. We'll also obviously be using that as a data point as well. So that is really it in terms of data for our 6-week push update. I just wanted to show you what that looks like, and I'll be doing most of the tracking there, but it's going to be really important that we look through that data with our teachers, and I think probably the most useful sheet will be this one with these 4 tabs. So, you know, if I am, let's see, I coach Science 7, so let's go down to Science 7. Okay, so for Science 7, if I was in a meeting with Kaylee, I would go across the board here and I would be looking for by performance band. So let's go ahead and make sure we freeze this row. I thought it was. We'll call, nope, it's a row. If I'm looking at Science 7 with Kaylee, it's going to be important that we go by performance band here. So our 2 biggest areas that we're looking for are 3 and 4, because our focus subgroups for this breakdown, this race breakdown, are Latinx and Black. Black is code 3 here, and Latinx is code 4. So we would really look at this as compared to our overall. So both our Black and Latinx students are below our overall performance score in performance band 1A, performance band 1B, they're above, performance band 2, right? So we would walk our way through, then we would do that same comparison to our white students here, our predominant subgroup. Okay, we could look at the overall for each race subgroup here. Then we can move on to our multilanguage learner breakdown. And again, using Science 7 as an example, our non-multilanguage learners versus our multilanguage learners, right? A pretty concerning gap here. Okay, so this is what we are working on here. So really making sure that we're breaking down by performance band, not just lumping all multilanguage learners together or all races together or all students with disabilities together. And students with disabilities, of course, would be on this tab. Going down to Science 7 again, looking for gaps across performance bands. A pretty significant inverse gap here, pretty large gap here, pretty large gap here, and an inverse gap for our performance band 4, which is awesome. So the focus would definitely need to be in here. And the next step would be with your teacher, figuring out who these students are, and trying to really aim our 6-week push and our MTSS systems to make sure our students are being supported, whether it's a gap that we see in race, multilanguage learners, or our students with disabilities. So that is how I would hope that y'all would use this with your people in coaching. The next thing I want to talk about, oh my gosh, I only have 9 minutes. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about here is our 12-16 rollout. It's our first reflection in department teams. And it's really, really imperative that this goes well and that this feels really planned and prepped for your departments. It's our first time we're touching back on the 6-week push as a whole staff. And if it feels haphazard or kind of secondary as a priority, we're going to lose a ton of buy-in. So it's really, really important that we nail this reflection. Here is where you could find your minute by minute. I don't know if you still have this open, but if not, it's the Remote Teaching PD 2021, 2020-2021 doc. And you'll see here at 12-16, we're going to be doing our afternoon PD in departments to share takeaways from our first, ideally, 2 peer observations. We'll have just about an hour to do this. If you scroll down, here is our minute by minute from our kickoff that y'all crushed. Got a ton of great feedback from the leadership in those department teams. And then here's our 12-16 peer obs reviews and takeaways. So there is no slide deck for this one. I think the way that this is going to feel most powerful is similar to how we run our ILT, wherein wherever we can, we try to be able to see one another on our screens. And I think that's going to be powerful. It's going to make you, it's going to make our team really see you as more of a person and not just like someone who's delivering this information. So it's important that you are in either together mode or you could see the majority of your people. So we're going to spend 5 minutes on framing, and I think it's important to really talk about the power of observations and collaboration. We know that this is best practice. There's not a ton that we need to defend here. I think the vast majority of our teaching team is on board. If you want to tee somebody up to share out about the power of observations in your group, that's fantastic. We want to name that this year is new for everyone. So that's why we are doubling down on the basics and trying to figure this out. And we also want to name that this has been a request from our teaching team. The request of how do we get students more involved? How do we get students to participate more? Can we have some concrete strategies for this? Since August in staff surveys, this is what our team has been asking for, and we are delivering. And then goal of the day on the 16th, on Wednesday when you roll this out, is we're trying to share true experiences. What's going well and what flopped? What's the biggest takeaway? And what's next for you? Then we'll spend about 30 minutes, and this is going to work out to roughly maybe around 3 to 5 minutes each for each person in your department. And we want them to share about themselves. Okay, what did they implement? How did it feel? What feedback did I get? What did I change, or how will I change based on that feedback? And then from their peers, from others, what were the biggest takeaways from teachers that I observed? And how will I, or how have I maybe, already used that in my class? And then questions, what am I still wondering about? Okay, I highly recommend that when you're doing this share out, you close down the chat and you let people know, hey, we're just going to be sharing aloud, and you copy and paste this and put it directly into the chat. And put it in there multiple times if you need to. Make sure that everybody knows what the prompt is, so that way the sharing goes really well. And I would also recommend that either you time or have you tee somebody else up to time to make sure that you get to every single person and that everybody has equal time to share. Then from there, we're going to do some questioning or brainstorming. So teachers could work individually, they could work with one another, they could work with you as the ILT lead. on creating really high-level inquiry-based questions to use in implementation of those selected strategies. If you remember back to the kickoff, oh my gosh, I only have like 5 minutes left. If you remember back to the kickoff, we talked about the through line for all 6 strategies, whether it's the 3 discussion strategies or the 3 writing strategies. The through line is having a high-level inquiry-based question to disrupt the norm of passivity that exists amongst our students. So the goal of this brainstorm time is that all teachers in your cohort, in your department, leave with 2 to 3 great questions to use for lessons in the upcoming week. These could be essential questions. These could be really great prompts to elicit one of their strategies, like a cold call or a volunteer. But we really want to double down that questioning is the way to pique student interest. And we're not going to be saying things like, well, the students just don't care about the content, the students are not trying, et cetera, et cetera. We create the weather as the adults in the room, and we need to set that norm for our teachers in these department groups. If we are doing a good job of making our classes really rigorous and really interesting, really high level, really engaging, our students will participate more. After this questioning brainstorm piece, and 20 minutes is quite a bit of time, so if you need to go a little bit over in these share outs, that's also totally okay. After that, we will spend about 5 minutes just doing a closing. And this is really where you would share out what you heard. Here are some big wins I heard from this department team, or maybe that you've already seen if you're watching the videos. You could resonate with some challenges, right? Here's what I heard is still something that we're working through. Really excited to see where this team takes it. And of course, I'm here to support with that, right? Those are some things you could share with your team. Talk about the next round of observations, which means that by 1:13, we should have our 3rd and 4th peer observations done. So that means they have the rest of next week, which is just really a handful of days. But then when we come back, they'll have some time to get those next 2 peer observations done. And yep, we're right here. And you would do some type of fun closing, do an appreciation, create a team cheer, talk about a social emotional well-being commitment that your team wants to make, create some accountability partners on that. But let's try to end this on a high note. I know I would say the vast majority of our teachers are really bought into this, but you know, we still have some teachers that we do need to get fully bought in, and ending with some joy, some level of humanality here is going to be really important as we close out. So that is really just about it. To sum up, we talked about some of our big data pushes. Oh, who's in here? Andy Glasgow, always working. We talked about some of our big data trackers. This is the main one here where we're looking at grade distribution data. This one y'all don't have access to. This is like our D-Team dashboard, but you'll have access to all of this because I'm going to share it with you on a weekly basis. And lastly, we talked about making sure that we nail our first reflection on the 16th. It is so important that we crush this first time coming back to our peer observation process and our 6-week push implementation for means of participation. So please, if you have questions, go ahead and ask. I am available to brainstorm about how to make these sessions really great. Outside of that, make sure your gradebook audits are done, and I will see y'all soon. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.